Greetings! This is Abandoned Prime, and today I start playing a game that I have going on in my folders. And I felt like this would be a perfect one to go along those lines. So, I hope you enjoy.
Major General Hans von Eisenberg was negotiating in secret for safe passage for his team. 5 of the V2 program's top men. He was meeting his Russian handler at the Brandenburg Gate.
Ich muss schlafen. Ich habe seit 2 Tagen nicht geschlafen. Uns geht es allen so.
Okay, what the F is going on here? I'm hitting the fire button, but nothing is happening, so I'm going to have to do a live find out why it's not working.
Today I'll be showing you how to fix the reload bug in Sniper Elite 5. Now this game is very new, so hopefully they do fix this soon, but as you
That's not the version I'm after, so...
Glaub bloß nicht, dass du was Besseres bist. Ich kann kaum ein...
It still don't work. Well, shit. Looks like I'm going to be ending my stream early. According to the internet, I got to either restart my game or something along those lines, which is bullocks. So, yeah.
Von Eisenberg was punctual and made no effort to hide his ugly face. Neither did his Russian contact. I had a clear shot. The slightest pressure on the trigger, and it was good night, Major General. Just a question of choosing my moment. The square was well sheltered, so there was no wind to worry about. I had to aim one notch above the target to compensate for bullet drop. I controlled my breathing to steady my aim. And then...
Nope, you're not getting away. I'm doing you both. Alright, I got my gun back. I guess I glitched the game. But I really that guy. Both of them. So this may take a couple of tries. So for those who are watching me,
Von Eisenberg was punctual and made no effort to hide his ugly face. Neither did his Russian contact. I had a clear shot. The slightest pressure on the trigger, and it was good night, Major General. Just a question of choosing my moment. The square was well sheltered, so there was no wind to worry about. I had to aim one notch above the target to compensate for bullet drop. I controlled my breathing to steady my aim. And then, shoot.
I do apologize. What I get for firing. It's always the third round that'll succeed. First two rounds are always a mix. I want to check something, so please bear with me.
Von Eisenberg was punctual and made no effort to hide his ugly
It's
face.
Monday, kids.
Neither did his Russian contact.
It's time for Midnight's Edge in the morning. I am Tom Connors. We have the boss man Andre here. How you doing, Andre?
I had a clear shot.
I am good.
The slightest pressure on the trigger, and it was good night, Major General. Just a question of choosing my moment. The square was well sheltered, so there was no wind to worry about. I had to aim one notch above the target to compensate for bullet drop. I controlled my breathing to steady my aim. And then, shoot.
As long as there's mobile, there's a way.
No connection with Spain going completely green April, middle of April. Getting rid of all reliable electricity generation systems. No connection whatsoever.
Nope. no green energy BS going on there. So yeah. So
They should,
That, of course.
set Greta Thunberg on fire and put her in a. Never mind.
What?
well, I'm sure many people would like
What?
that, but.
Know what I meant. I was trying to make a log joke. Okay, I'm going to bad places.
Oh, I thought you were making a witch joke, but okay.
Which witch? The Wicked Witch?
Keep introducing people. I'm being.
I was just gonna say, as Paul interrupts my introductions, we have Paul Chado coming from Canada and other Canadians. We also have Scribe Light with us. How you doing, Scribe?
And I'm waiting Greta Thunderbolts or something to happen.
Greta Thunderbolts. We also have Culture Casino with us. How you doing?
I'm great.
When you think of Culture Casino, you think of BO. That's right. Box office.
Oh! Oh!
The fact that you thought I meant body odor makes me wonder. And Chris is here as well. Chris Brawl, leading.
Hello, hello. Big weekend. Glad to be here. Happy Monday, everybody.
Hey to you. So with that, let's get rolling because we have a couple super chats and we also have some news to get into. We got Cannon Barnes sending in a very generous $10 this week. It says, good morning, afternoon, everyone on tonight's end. We've got some interesting news. First weekend box office to Trump's tariffs on foreign production. Wow. How right you are, sir. And then SFX at 314 Sabretooth sending in another 10 smack saying, coming next summer, Logarine. 2 times the Logan and 2 times the Wolverine. The Ultimate Warrior.
Yes,
Next block goes to pre-orders. Yeah.
I think low green sounds good. We need a low green. If not now, when?
I wash my mouth out every morning with Logarine. Makes me
I have heard translator evidently didn't know what it was. He thought it was like the female wolf. So he translated the name into basic fest.
native.
Pretty much, yeah. But that's what he's saying when he appears. He's like coming, I am the Lady Wolf.
You're mean. Yogi said that $1.99 says possible should be Grimzilla says feels like these actors own a movie deal and they I think he's saying the actors do this office. Luckily for them, I don't think they're gonna We're sending in a thumbs up. I'd remind you to pound that thumbs up if you haven't already as we get started here this morning. With that, that's a good place for us to get into the Thunder News. Because it is Monday, and every Monday we do something on that is the box office news with Culture Casino.
Hey. Think of culture in box office. Speaking of box office, this weekend was as except for the extraordinary. I don't for a second weekend. I still don't understand why this is hanging in there the way it is, but I'm glad because for a film that had a $90 million budget, this really needed to hang on. And since its best appeal location was the U.S. national consideration, it needs to make money here. And in second place, did it again. But Thunderbolts is story of the day, I guess, because it just 76 million. It's just but is this where we figured this was at? Is this the conversation? Is that this will come in at the very 7,000 restrictions?
Yeah, we talked about 80.
And better than
That was really Marvel. It was fantastic.
I have to stop you because I have to keep reminding you. And I was going to do this yesterday, but I said no, and I never just let the video slide. People keep forgetting. You cannot compare apples to apples with this in Black Widow. Black Widow was released day and date on Disney Plus.
Yeah, with
So if you
Premier
stop and
Access.
think about it, Black Widow probably made a lot more money than this did.
Yep.
Opening weekend, because that was just the box office opening weekend you're talking about, Andre. That doesn't even count the premium, the price that they charged on. We have no idea what they made off of Disney Plus, do we, Culture? I don't think we
No.
ever got those numbers.
No, we got nothing. Nothing that I can remember anyway.
Because people forget that was released day and date on streaming. I watched it the day it came out in my house in 4K in Dolby Atmos with Dolby Vision.
Bragger.
Well, I'm just saying, I didn't have to go to a theater to see it. That was my point. People keep forgetting that movie came out on streaming at the same time.
Well, that's why there was a big hullabaloo when that's why
She
Scarlett was
sued,
suing.
yeah.
Right. I mean, that's why she's not in any more movies, Marvel movies.
So that more apples to apples would just be the Eternals, Andre,
Yes.
and so
Or
yeah.
Shang-Chi.
Or Shang-Chi.
Yeah, look, I mean, there were a lot of losers released altogether, including the Eternals. But if you look at this, that is the best comp, is the Eternals, as far as the box office and box office run.
Deliato asked a good question. Does Disney Plus actually make money? Well, according to Parrot Analytics, yes, it makes all the monies. Did you see what they claimed that somehow, what was it, Andor has earned them over $30 million?
300 million.
Like, where are you getting this number from? Are you asking Zack Snyder or what? Like,
Oh, you don't need to ask him. All you have to do is ask the very same Disney accountants that decided, how can we make it so that Captain America Brave New World doesn't lose so much? Oh, yeah, that's right, of course. We have 300 million in earnings by selling it to Disney Plus. We just shift money from one account to the other. Boom, now it made money. It has to be something like that, where they sell it to themselves.
Yeah, and that's probably the only way that they can do it, to try to show it actually did all right. But when you look at the actual performance of this film, you start to scratch your head. First of all, it opened up to the preview access on Thursday, starting at 2 p.m. in the various time zones that it opened. That gave it an extended day, extended window. It also went into far more theaters than any of the other mentioned properties we just talked about. It went into 4,330. You have 11.5 million in earnings on that Thursday, which means, since these two are added together to make Friday numbers, it only made $20 million on Friday. It didn't accelerate into the weekend, and that's why it looks like Saturday took a dive. It didn't really, but because of the fact that they continue to do this with the Thursday, Friday numbers, you end up with it looking like Saturday fell off 22%. But it didn't. It actually was higher by $4 million.
ooh,
Then you
it's
take-
still not great though.
Yeah, it's just insane. So when I look at these numbers now, especially on the weekends, you can already see a pattern. It made $2,200 per screen, and then they claim $7,200 a screen. But that's not really what it
You
made.
gotta actually reduce the amount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like, okay, stop lying. I mean, this would have been the number that you should have been comfortable with for, a release on the, Thursday, and that the Friday number should look a lot the same. Yeah. It's just, it's incredibly frustrating. But look, and when you do compare it against something like Eternals, this isn't doing well. If you compare it to just a couple months ago when they released a Brave New, WEF. That film did $12 million better in its domestic open.
Yeah, but here's the thing with this, and this is what's funny, is actually we're talking about this like it's a huge failure. The bigger failure was Captain America. This making $76 million is not bad for a movie about a bunch of characters that nobody knows. The problem is how much it cost. Because this is probably playing what... This would be a pretty decent movie if it was a mid-budget film right now. $76 million for an opening?
Yeah,
that's great.
Yep.
If it would only cost $80 million to make.
But
that's the problem.
Yeah, I was surprised that Variety actually mentioned the $100 million or so for marketing, in addition to the $180 million production budget. They normally try not even to mention that, oh yeah, in addition to the number everyone's batting around, there's all this marketing and promotion budget that we need to deal with.
Well, I think they're tired of hearing it from us.
Yeah, maybe so.
Because we always point out they're lying to you because this costs this amount of money in marketing. And you know what? They're missing about $40 million of marketing money, but set that aside, at least they're trying to be intellectually honest about this business.
A little more than usual. Yeah. So it's got to earn 450 or so to break even.
But see, the published budgets for these are never accurate. That's what they budgeted going into the production. So if they publish a budget of $180 million for Thunderbolts, and they publish a budget of $180 million for Captain America: Brave New World, which no one thinks was anywhere close to what that cost with how many times they reshot that. There is a big difference there. But
do you guys think the new Avengers rebranding was part of the plan the entire time, or is that just like a last minute effort to try to get more eyeballs on it?
Well,
why would anyone care?
You think so? Okay.
Why would anyone care? Yeah, no one. I don't think it would have moved the needle at all either way.
Yeah, well, let's take a quick look at the comparisons between. Maybe not
numbers. Everyone's going there now.
Yeah, and anyway,
and over 200 more theaters than
exactly
American movie.
Yeah, exactly, and that's kind of the point I wanted to get to. Is it with Captain America only opening in 41? I think the embarrassment falls on Thunderbolts because it's 200 more theaters.
Yeah,
that's a lot. And I don't know. I just, in looking at it and its early performance and the early opening and everything else, my expectations for this film are to finish exactly where we thought it would, under $400 million at most.
Yeah. Oh, easily. We did one of the things that was going around on the weekend that I noticed was it was being touted as the 12th highest global debut of any Marvel movie out of the 37 Marvel movies. So
I need to mind that
this morning we did a quick breakdown of, let's adjust those numbers
for inflation.
Yeah, and it came in at 27 out of 35 movies. So not exactly a barn burner. Only the Eternals, the Marvels, Shang-Chi, and some of the early MCU movies opened at a lower number. So
that's pretty embarrassing.
Yeah.
But and what's even more embarrassing is that this probably is creatively the best MCU project, certainly this year.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a long time since we've had a good one. I mean, the reason there's other comparisons to things like Black Widow is because it got an A- cinema score, which is something I talk about in the video I dropped this morning. And that's great and all, and it does indicate that they legitimately told a story from beginning to end for a change without a lot of confusing things there because they cut this thing to pieces, reshot it, and patchworked it together. But it also had enough there that
I've had conversations with people in my audience. I've had conversations with people that are my friends about whether or not this is a good movie at all. And
double kneecap.
first of all, I like having that conversation. That's the one I want to have. I don't want to be talking about how this is going to be a dismal failure, massive flop, pick your adjective, whatever. You know, it's more fun when, you know, Paul and I can go back and forth on, you know, story elements and stuff. You know, that's what Friday was all about. And it's in again, the fact that my audience seems to be split on this film between you know, they enjoyed the film or they didn't enjoy the film tells me a lot. It's that this is a move in the right direction, but I think it's way too late.
Ouch!
Well, Shang-Chi had a cinema score of A.
Really?
Yeah.
It was a masterpiece. I was told.
You know, there's a ton of the Marvel movies have an A or at least an A minus. Even Black Widow had an A.
You guys forget that Eternals saved lives.
That's true. That's true.
It didn't save careers.
I just mentioned that The Sinners is still doing well because they're promoting it as a Tyler Perry movie.
Oh. You know, I think it's the hidden, unmentionable, can I say cunnilingus that goes on throughout the movie. There's a lot of that. And I think once people hear about it word of mouth, they're like, what? I got
word of mouth. But anyways,
hello.
Wow.
Well, that's better than the anilingus that was hidden throughout Eternals. I'll tell you that.
Easy now.
I don't know what Thunderbolts are going to do in the second weekend. I don't think it's going to do particularly well. No. But
well, what do you think would be a tolerable fall off, Paul?
50%.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh.
I've had quite a few people of the female persuasion commenting on my channel, saying that they really enjoyed it, and then took their husbands to it. So women like struggle sessions. We all know. So there's
that makes
something
sense.
there.
Well, yeah, again, they've changed their audience from the men to the women.
But in this particular case, they could have done this even at the height of their powers. There's nothing wrong with doing it right. You know, and I think, you know, part of it is the casting. We did talk about, did they need to hoof asshole Captain America in the nuts? No, they probably didn't. I'm sure they enjoyed that in the writer's room. But notwithstanding that, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. The problem is when they do things like make Iron Man Riri, right? Those are the issues that I think most people have problems with. But Yelena is a fine lead in a movie. Maybe Black Widow would have been better. Scarlet would have been better, but then they screwed that movie up royally. So.
Well, and the problems I'm hearing from people, because I haven't seen it yet either, but the things I'm hearing from people is it's either homework the movie because they don't know who any of these people are, or why they're there, where they're coming from, or what their relationship is. Or the other side of it, if you are aware of all this stuff and you watch these shows, I'm hearing people are saying, did they even watch the show that this person was on? Because it doesn't make any sense. It's like all the growth and things that happened during the show, like specifically Wyatt Russell's character was one that was brought up.
Yeah.
So go ahead if you want to run with that, Scribe, because that's another thing I'm hearing is the problem is that people are not liking how they're just like, they didn't even watch the shows they were in.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of like when you have a sequel to a video game and you've gone through the first video game and you've leveled up this character so much and then you have to somehow depower that character to start off in a brand new video game. Sometimes it makes sense, the rationalization they use. In this case, it didn't. They took John Walker, who was, and again, I'm talking in relative terms because Falcon and the Winter Soldier was no prize pig or anything, but in relative terms, John Walker was the best thing about that show. He had the most character development, the most interesting arc, and they treated him seriously in that show, like I say, because he was a war veteran. He had a whole, he had to shoulder the mantle of Captain America, all this pressure to succeed and everything else. He went through all his demons. It was great. And then they take this character and they put him in this movie, and suddenly he's just this like whipping James Gunn humor meathead who gets disrespected by everybody around him and just kind of like shrugs his shoulders, yeah, I guess so. And then talks about how much he's like a loser and everything else throughout the movie. It was embarrassing, honestly. They could have done something really interesting with that character, and they just completely cut him out from under his knees.
He had his moments. It was enjoyable.
Did you watch the Falcon Winter Soldier series, Paul?
The one where Falcon, what is it, embrades, what's the word, the congressman, that one?
Yes.
Yeah, the one where it helps him to do better.
Do better, Senator.
Yes, I saw it up to that episode and then quit.
Oh, well, that was like the last episode.
It was, pardon me?
That's when
I think that was the last episode, I
Was
think.
it? Okay.
Yeah.
All I know is that up to that point, I actually enjoyed it. The fight on the train, their relationship, I thought was pretty good. It started well.
Yeah, they of all the characters, I mean, the one character out of the group, aside from Bucky, John Walker had, I think, the most character development throughout his brief run on that TV show.
But it's not hard for someone who has a kind of rough edge. It's harder to be a goody two-shoes superhero. Walker's character was brilliant. It's such an enjoyable...
Oh, Wyatt Russell took material that was dog shit compared to what he was doing in Falcon and the Winter Soldier and turned it into... He was entertaining. This is the thing. I have nothing against any of the actors and what they were given and what they did with it. The actors' performances for what they were handed was fine. The representation, dare I use the word, of the individual characters as previously established was, in many cases, completely off base, and especially in Bucky's case.
The best thing Thunderbolts has going for it is there is nothing coming out next weekend, I think, that's going to really impact the top five.
Lilo and
It's kind
Stitch
of
is...
like ironic when I don't think that Lilo and Stitch is going to be much competition for it. I mean, that's like
that's the 23rd.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Is Lilo and Stitch comes out in it's the third weekend it arrives for. For
next weekend is Clown in a cornfield or something. I
mean, weird thing that might actually hit Sinners. But
what is it with Disney and liking to pile their movies on top of each other though? Because they've done this for a long time. This is not anything like more recent.
No.
And I'm reminded mainly of the year that they dropped like Solo and a Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and I think an animated film all on top of each other, and then they complained that all three flopped.
Well, when you buy Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm, and your own movies, it gets the calendar gets crowded. Sorry, fellas.
No, it does. And here's there's a bigger, broader conversation here. The top three movies did what the top three movies have been doing since, the winter. They're earning all the money. The Thunderbolts is $76 million. Half of that would be Sinners. Half of that'll be Minecraft. I mean, a little more than half that, but or a little under than half that. But that's my point. Is by the time you get to the fourth film down, The Accountant, which did decent numbers this weekend on its second weekend, $9 million. After that, it's the definite flop of this Until Dawn film. And The Amateur, which for whatever reason got no traction. So by the time you're down to the seventh movie, The King of Kings, which has been around since, a while now at $57 million, not only is this very profitable for them, but it also, you can see, we were falling off a cliff after number 5. I mean, we were already headed on the downward slope. This is going to be the same way things are going to play out till we get to Lilo and Stitch versus Mission Impossible. And then those two movies are going to suck up all the oxygen, right, Tom? Sorry about that.
Maybe, but like the other thing is they only scheduled Revenge of the Sith for a week. Now, if they hadn't had Thunderbolts coming out like this, and with the amount of money that Revenge of the Sith made last weekend, damn well they would have extended that movie for another couple weeks because they had basically like a Godzilla -1 situation. Even more money than that, really. Because, I mean, that movie made just as much as Sinners did last weekend. Right now, like, it says 33 million here, and I remember last weekend Revenge of the Sith made what, $30 million?
Yep.
So that's my point, is you dropped a movie that made a third of what your big budget superhero movie did.
Well, that just to me that just shows just how Disney did this out of obligation rather than they actually had any enthusiasm over doing it. It's like, well, it's the 20th anniversary, so we should probably re-release it. And then they didn't know what kind of a golden goose they had on their hands because they've completely discounted their library at this point.
Well, they've discounted a lot of things, to be sure.
Yeah, well, yeah. OG Star Wars in general, let's say.
Yeah, oh, for sure, for sure. You know, and then when you look at it, I mean, and again, well, we always talk about it last, but I'll jump it to the front right now. There's only 38 movies in theaters right now. Many of them are retreads or, you know, whatever else. And they only earned $142 million. $142.4 million. And as we just showed, that's the top. That all that money's coming out of these films. That's it. Everything else is in the low, you know, hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, just thousands. It's just,
oh man, yeah. And even in the top 10, you've got some that are just doing six figures.
Yeah.
Snow White eked out another almost $250,000.
Yeah.
Go away.
Okay. Bye.
Talking to Snow White.
Oh, well, yeah. But they have to leave that up, right, Tom? You're trying to save face.
I would love to see the agreements that these cinemas have to sign and how long they have to keep them up there. Tom probably knows about that better than anybody.
Well, there's at least 310 theaters, Chris, that have to keep it in their theater.
You know what? You know why they're doing that? So they can have a marketing campaign that says, in theaters for 52 weeks, Snow White.
Mm-hmm.
That actually used to be something
Yes.
that they would crow about, how long it had been in theaters.
Well, the 2001 played in the same theater in Toronto for 2 solid years, I believe.
Well, I bet that
Yeah,
was
there
a
was
much better
theaters.
experience.
Yeah, there were theaters that showed Star Wars for years, right? Like, they even had an anniversary poster for the theaters that were showing it for nonstop for over a year.
Yeah.
No, I mean, as far as like Disney Snow White, I think anybody under they're way beyond any obligation. This is probably just being kept in a few theaters where they actually have enough theaters to keep a theater for Snow White.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, like a multiplex, like a 25 screen.
Yeah, that has like 25 screens and they got like 3 screens left over. It's like, well, what are you going to throw on those 3 screens? Oh, we'll throw in Snow White. Yeah, because this movie is done, dead, over the hill. But no, you're not wrong, because yeah, back in the day with the video magazines, I'd open them up and the first thing it would say at the top was, you know, 52 weeks in the theater, $33 million in the box office.
Right.
One of the biggest hits of the year. You don't miss out on Puppet Master 3. You know, like,
Puppet Master 3, that's a classic.
no, I mean, it was always like they'd always amp it up like it's, and it was really like, and then you look at the little asterisks down at the bottom and say like released in 2 theaters. You know, like,
You're right.
Kubrick's Puppet Master 3.
yeah. Now I want to see that. But no, Thunderbolts is one of those things where, look, I think we've hit the road, or the point in the road with comic book movies where if this movie had not cost so goddamn much money, Thunderbolts we'd be talking about how well it did, because a normal comic book movie back in the day, like these movies were few and far between, and the ones that were hits were even fewer and farther between. We've been living in an era of a roughly a decade now where we've had these movies that have been overperforming and then some by leaps and bounds. Like even a movie like Guardians of the Galaxy, it should not have done as well as it did. The only reason it did as well as it did is because it was in the height of the Marvel MCU era. That's why.
Can I correct one thing there? You said even a movie like, no, you should say especially a movie like Guardians of the Galaxy, because that's the prime example. Not only did it overperform,
and that's basically what this is here, yeah.
Yeah, like most every other Marvel movie of that time, of 1 decade ago. First, you had the opening weekend projections, and then it came on a little bit more. So it kept on having to revise both the projections and the actuals further and further up over the course of the weekend. And in the end, the movies always overperformed, or almost overperformed by 20% relative to expectations. That didn't happen with this one, which is interesting.
Well, because Guardians of the Galaxy was the beneficiary of goodwill built up over good movies prior to it, whereas Thunderbolts, which is, I mean, structurally speaking, it is like Guardians of the Galaxy. You have a whole bunch of unrecognizable characters to most people. You don't know how they're going to interact, and yet it's performing like this versus Guardians of the Galaxy.
And get myself into position.
And I mean, and I would argue that the audience is more aware of brand recognition now than they ever were before. Right, because I mean, remember when the Avengers first came out, there was a lot of people going, well, where's Batman? Where's Superman?
Really?
Oh, yeah. Especially in a video store, trust me.
Oh, God,
some.
yeah. And also keep in mind, there were not just some, a lot of people thought that, for instance, Batman Begins was a prequel to Tim Burton's Batman, all the way up until the release of The Dark Knight. And still, you still to this day have people that think that Marvel's The Incredible Hulk is a sequel to Ang Lee's Hulk, which it isn't.
Or people that don't even realize that The Incredible Hulk is part of the MCU, right? Like, so like there is audience, there was more audience. My point was there was more audience confusion back then than there is now. But this is my point, is I think even the Marvel brand itself is not worth what it used to be. People are aware of it. They know there's a difference between Marvel. They know there's a difference between DC. But at this point, they're not eating either flavor. They don't care. And maybe Superman will change that. But I'm at this point where I'm not even sure Superman's going to do very well. I've been maintaining it for a while. We've hit the end of the road when it comes to superhero movies. They are now the way of the Western. I don't know what's going to be next, but yes, we're going to have a few hits here and there in the next 10, 15 years, but it's not going to be like this again. This is
ow!
It.
And I got it
Marvel
recorded too.
Over.
Ow!
20 years.
Yow!
Mainly about 15 years of really good
man
films.
hurts
And
her.
we got our answer now. How many movies was it going to take?
But I
Roughly
took out the
5.
bad guy by shooting
about
off
what it
his
took.
balls.
To get to the point where the audience has turned it off.
If you're wondering about the budgets of these films, if you stay through the credits, one of the first things that strikes you is, oh my God, look at the number of people working and attached to this film.
Yeah.
And not that you can tell specifically which shoebox the money went into, but you're going, this is just a lot of people. And how many of them are really, really necessary, you don't know. But it's just a staggering volume of people that are attached to these superhero movies, and you can sort of go, okay, apart from the salaries of the stars of the movie, you can kind of see that money went somewhere, because that's a ton of people.
Well, I think a lot of the money, believe it or not, goes into the effects houses. I'm sure you'll agree.
Yes.
I mean, when you have 7 different effects studios working on your project, like they did for Brave New World, you watch the credits, you're like, this effects house, this effects house, this effects, and you're like, and there's, what is that, like 30 names under each one of those effects houses, plus you're like, okay, so 12,000 people worked on this movie, and
don't forget, sometimes you'll get, and I don't know how Hollywood does it anymore because they're bastards with effects houses, is that there's something called panic pricing.
I fucked up that dude's legs.
Where you're going to come in and interrupt the flow of an effects house that's in the middle of some production, and you're telling them, no, this has got to be redone, or we're taking it away from this other studio and we're giving it to you, and you only have 2 weeks to do it, you're going to get charged through the nose.
Yeah, plus, I mean, you create a crunch, which, Jason Schreier is going to,
constant crunch.
Yeah. And that's how effects is done, and that's how effects have been done since they've been making these films, which is why sometimes it looks terrible.
They've got to get it under control, though. I mean, they've got to get this under. There's no reason this costs more production-wise than Winter Soldier, unless it's just an accounting.
Well, here's the thing, and we've learned about this. First of all, you have certain producers and production people where they get a big chunk of the money, right? Then you have the guild aspect of it, where, in the past X amount of years, especially, like Paul was saying, how long credits are now. You want to know where that really started? Go back to like Lord of the Rings and stuff, because then when the guilds would get involved, and they're like, not only can you not just you can't just say that it was done by this effects house and the lead animators anymore. You have to literally list everybody who did everything down to the guy who emptied the fucking garbage can. Right? Like,
yeah, sure. And that's why there's a long credits list. Right.
And not only that, that's why it's so expensive now, because you literally have 3 people for one job every time, and it's a guild rule. It's like you can't just have one person doing the hammering now. You have to have one guy who hands the guy the hammer, the other guy who inspects the hammer, and then the guy who actually uses the hammer.
They still need to get under. I mean, even Homecoming, Spider-Man: Far From Home, they cost less to make than this. So you've got to get this under control.
Yeah, it's the amount of people you got working on it. It's the amount of stars. Like, I mean, these actors need
David
to understand.
Harbour. Yeah, I know. I mean, I get it. I get it. But however they do it, they've got to get these budgets under control. It's as simple as that. This is not going to be.
Well, they kind of need to reinvent Hollywood, which will kind of take us into our next topic. Go ahead, Culture.
No, just to add one last thing to that. Stop making post-credit scenes. You save a lot of money on the budget.
That's the only thing from the Thunderbolts I saw was the post-credit scene, and the damn thing was so long I shut it off because I got bored.
I heard the Russo brothers directed it.
Yeah, they did. It was 2 minutes plus, or 2:20, or whatever it ended up being.
Maybe that's why it was better than the rest of the movie.
We're going to find out the Russo brothers are not much more than a one-hit wonder, you guys. I'm going to tell you right now, because James Gunn was holding their hands through the entire Infinity Saga.
Mm-hmm.
The only good movie they've ever made was Captain America: Winter Soldier.
Was anything they've done since then? I mean, we've had Gray Man,
That's
Citadel.
my point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they had their day in the sun,
Winter Soldier
and now
was the peak, no doubt.
Yeah, it was great.
And
otherwise, they had other people helping them out, and now when we're going to actually see them for the first time without any James Gunn, Kevin Feige, and that's the other thing is he's rumored to be so stretched thin. Even though I would give him no credit for anything creative anyway, right? We're at this point now where I think we're going to see the proof is going to be in the pudding. You've got Robert Downey Jr., who, as much as we love him, let's be real, he's just as fucking crazy as the rest of them.
Oh yeah.
These movies are not going to turn out to be what everybody thinks they are.
I heard some spoiler rumors that Downey Jr. not only plays Doom, but 3 other characters in them.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
I
Apparently-
wouldn't be surprised
yeah.
because they're shooting without a script now, too. Go ahead, Scribe.
Oh, well, so not to get too deep into it, I've learned about the Chris Claremont revelations about what apparently these movies are going to have, and in general terms, without giving anything specific away, many of the old guard MCU actors are going to play multiple iterations of their same character, or alternate versions of other characters where the actor is taking that role. So they get to pay the actor once and get 3 different performances out of them to fill out the running time.
It's like What If meets the multiverse.
Yeah, and some of the things I heard, I was kind of like, if that was a standalone story they were doing for like an anthology series, that might be interesting. But to try to cram all of that into one movie, come on.
And you can find these rumors on the web if you. Claremont apparently said a lot of stuff at a.
Yeah, I don't know how much of it I actually buy because the amount of people that he's saying that are supposed to be in the movie and some other people are leaking now. It's like they could never, even if they were just cameos, like quick cameos.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I could see is if we have another scene near the ending where they're trying to recreate the Endgame scene. Where you have all the Avengers show up and all the other superheroes in one big grand shot. And if that's it, then it's like, okay, fine. That I can see because 90% of them are probably just going to be CGI anyway, and they just signed off on it.
Well, at this point, given how much freedom and money they're throwing at Russo's to do this, and given their track record of the recent years, I wouldn't put past them to do something as stupid as the worst possible scenario we can think of.
Yeah.
It really feels like a gambling addict at the table that's been losing. They're like, no, I'm all in. They're
doubling down and doubling down and doubling down more and more.
Oh.
Yeah.
And you're not wrong. That's a good analogy for it because that's kind of what these movies are. Because the more and more expensive they get and the less interested the audience is, the more of a gamble it is for them. And that's my point from the start is if they had only spent 30, 40, 50, 60 million dollars on Thunderbolts, we'd be having a very different conversation right now, or even 80 million dollars.
Oh my God.
Because then the movie is within shot of making, not just being profitable, making a lot of money. Right, and if they would learn to make some of these comic book movies a lot cheaper, because there's so many of them, they could. right? The problem that's going along with this, and I think Paul and the others are bringing up more so, is that you have too many expensive cast members, and that's where most of this money is going. Because look at Avengers as a good example. When you when you factor in what Robert Downey Jr. is taking home and the Russo brothers alone, right there is at least 2/3 of your budget.
Yes. Yeah, they should have been focusing on single character, small stakes stories and building, just like what the original Avengers plan was. You have individual characters and their own little adventures, which are relatively
a few
small
team
stakes.
up movies, maybe.
Yeah, a crossover here, cameo there, kind of thing. And then when you do the really big team up thing, that's because you've earned enough over the smaller films to be able to justify a slightly larger budget. You already got them contracted in. But every single movie has to be, like Paul said, 17,000 names on an effects studio for an end-of-the-world scenario on a introductory movie for a character. Shang-Chi has to save the world from the giant dragon. Eternals have to save the world from the giant thing. It's like, stop
Neither
it.
one of those movies should have been over $100 million in budget.
They shouldn't have been made at all.
No,
That's not the way that they were made.
Honestly, those are the ones that should have been the TV shows. This is where they went bass backwards with this whole fucking thing. You take these little characters that nobody knows and you toss them out there as a cheap-ass TV show and see if people actually react to them.
Or you just have a budget movie, like I think Paul said, if they'd made Shang-Chi a classic chop-socky kind of... Yeah, exactly. Just low budget. It's just like, you've offended my family in the Shaolin Temple, and now I'm going to take you down kind of thing. It would have been great. And you can do those little things. The Werewolf by Night thing, nobody talks about this enough.
That was one of the few things I think they got right?
Yeah, exactly. They had a small cast, small budget, very intimate, quaint little story that doesn't affect everything else and isn't affected by everything else. And it was just a great little movie. And they could have done 20 of those for the budgets that they pay for these other movies. It's insane.
Well, they're doing one of those for, I think, Punisher. But you think about like Deadpool and Joker, 2019, less than 60 million budgets. Both those.
Exactly. And money well spent, by the way.
Deadpool's the only one I'll bring an exception to, because that was where we learned that's part of the problem with this. Because even though that movie was made on a quote-unquote budget and without a huge cast, they ended up getting sued from their special effects companies for not paying them, and that movie didn't even have nearly the amount of special effects as any of the other Marvel movies would have. Right?
Right.
That is the truth. So like even at the end of the day, that movie still cost closer to 120 million to make, because they ended up having to dish out, I think, 30 or 40 million to pay off the animators, if I remember right.
Still made 780 or something like that.
Dare I make a segue here? Question: If my movie is made in the United States, but my effects house is situated in London, is that a foreign production?
Yes. That's a good question, and that's kind of does segue nicely into our next topic, because I think part of the problem is that Hollywood needs to reinvent itself, and we're going to get into that here.
Yeah, and the update, there's also an update to that story that most people were, jumping to conclusions last night that maybe they shouldn't have jumped to.
Let's get into this, or should we do some super chats first, Andre?
Super chats and then.
Yeah, super chats and then that. Yeah,
I thought so. But let's start off with some super chats and then we'll get into that. KDM says has been a member for 27 months. Wow. Thank you for that, KDM, and your awesome art there. We got /11111 in the house sending in €5.99 or close to €6. Says here in France, Wolverine was introduced in the late 90s as Serval. Or Serval. I can't say it right probably. I need Paul. Serval. Because the word we use for Wolverine translates to the glutton.
The glutton. Must be the blob.
Why would they do that?
There's some funny international translations going on there. I could mention several.
There are lots of nasty vermin in France they could have used.
Chaos Sonic.
Yeah.
Chaos Sonic 1 sends in 10 and says, I am mad about this, and mad about this is not supposed to be the new Avengers, as that was a different team that includes Spider-Man, and the original Thunderbolts are villains fooling the people led by Zemo. Yeah, that's another complaint I've heard a lot of people say, is how this isn't even really the Thunderbolts and all that kind of business. So yeah.
Thank God I knew nothing about them.
And then Chaos Sonic 1 says, I hate that this is the best one, that this should have been Zemo creating the Masters of Evil instead of making the new Avengers. Yeah. We have Paulie joining us in the back. How you doing?
Hey,
Paulie.
I'm well. What's going on?
We're in the middle of super chats.
Feliz Gringo de Mayo.
Oh yeah, that's right. It is Cinco de Mayo, isn't
Oh
it?
yeah, absolutely.
Yes, on the
Totally
400
is.
highway, we had a sinkhole de
Felicidades.
Mayo.
Oh, it's Drinko de Mayo.
I'm not Cinco de Drinko.
It just makes so much sense that you love Thunderbolts.
See, in America, if we had a sinkhole de Mayo, it would be actually being filled by Mexicans. See, so we're very festive.
Because I actually have a sense of humor.
Well, it is a sense
that
of
what
humor,
it is?
but it's a Chato sense of humor.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it is unique.
It is very unique, and that's why I was like, of course he loves this film.
And then Mark Daly says with $10, right after Canada's never Trump or PM election, and right before earnings call from Disney, Paramount, and Warner, Trump announces 100% tariff on films produced out of the USA. Coincidence? I say thee nay. Well, we're about to get into that, actually.
Yeah.
So hold that thought. And then we got
This
Mr.
is going to cripple
Godzilla.
the Canadian economy, that's for certain.
Ooh, it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, too bad Script had to take off because I know he had some interesting
He's got good takes
on this. Mr. Godzilla sends in $10 and says, I lost interest when I heard Sentry was in the film, and then I said, wait, that's the team against him? I would have had the Abomination, Zemo, Songbird, MODOK, and Taskmaster both redone, and Walker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then we got Captain Potato. He is a potato. Look at him. Sends in $10 and says, I am not a potato. No, I'm just kidding. Disney can't risk U.S. agent becoming the audience preferred Cap substitute over Sam Cap. Yeah, that's the problem is online,
That's
though.
also true.
How many people now are going, this is the Captain America we should have gone?
Well, I like Wyatt
Racist,
Russell's character.
Racist.
Yeah, Wyatt Russell was great.
Yeah.
Underrated.
White
Very
Russell.
good. Wyatt.
He's a very likable actor, too. That's the other thing. Mark Daly says, my only gripe with the Thunderbolts is slapping that name on this brand or on this band of therapy patients means we'll never get the real Thunderbolts. Zemo villains pretending to be heroes and liking it would have been great.
Yeah.
It would have been a nice twist for Zemo, too, because they haven't quite really utilized him
No.
very well.
They didn't use him well in Falcon Winter
no.
Soldier, and he's just gone now.
And they kind of left him open in a way that I could kind of see him making a bit of a turn towards the good in a way.
Yeah.
Because the only thing really wrong was that of all the quote unquote sympathetic villains we've had in the universe, he was one of the ones that made sense, right?
A little bit,
You know?
yeah. His motivation was understandable,
Yeah.
at least.
I mean, yeah, his plan was very convoluted, but
Yes. He made
it
a lot of
required a lot of
assumptions.
people to. Yeah, it required some people to do some things that you were really assuming they were going to do, but yeah. Dark King sends in 5 and says, after a bad box office start from the year, are theaters on the right course to survive the year? The weekend total since April have been 100 million. Culture, that's a good question for you.
The weekend totals since April all have been 100 million plus, yes, but it's basically just the top 3. That's really the point behind it all. You cannot have 3 successful films and everything else dragging Hollywood down at the same time. Exhibitors are not getting the kind of, butts in seats that they need to leave all of their theaters open. This is going to be a problem going forward. We also need more releases we need to get back into the 40s rather than sitting, low in the 30s. That's not helpful. There are films out there to see. Paulie could point you towards a lot of them. The problem is they're not making it into wide distribution. And that comes down to what distributors seem to be willing to distribute. That's basically the name of the game. And right now, there are so few big studios, as we've seen the condensing of Hollywood. It's not helped. And I don't see growth. I don't see new studios coming that are going to be competitive fast enough for this problem to get fixed anytime soon.
And then we've got
I
Jason
think
Webster.
it's gotten better, but
Yeah.
I agree with culture. It's definitely got. But you're talking about a 6-week run where it was death.
Yeah.
So there's life. There's some lifeline. Some what do you call it? A pulse.
Yeah, there's a pulse.
But there's a lot of films that have been produced for low to decent budgets that get little or no love from whether they don't have the marketing that the other big studios have, that people just don't hear about, and then they're gone.
Yeah, right now Hollywood's built on the idea of locking out the competition, and it's been that way for a while, and that's been a problem. And unless they allow the competition to exist and they don't make deals that are counterproductive to exhibitors either finding out about these films or getting it shot at these films and having decent marketing. I know that's one of the big things that Paulie and I probably could talk about is that there's not enough marketing for some of these projects, and they go unnoticed.
It's very strange. It's very strange. I think for the most part, they mismarket most of the films.
That too.
I think like Minecraft was perfect.
Yes.
Sinners was perfect. Who they marketed it to begin with to get the ball rolling.
Yeah. They need more horror too. I mean, usually these horror movies are low budget. They need something like a Long Legs or a Terrifier 3 or something that puts up some numbers.
Yeah, there's always a horror movie out every week. That's the funny part. And even that from what I hear, was pretty bad. That Lady in the Yard, even that made its money and then some, because it was made for $15 million. So yeah.
Then we got Jason Webster, who says 61st Bucksung Arts Awards. Uprising, 3 honors. Harbin, 2 awards. And Revolver got 2 awards. There you go. There's your update on Bucksung Art Awards. Hypergiver 2 says, once upon a time, the name Claremont would give us hope, but now it tells us that it's just woke, incoherent bullshit.
Ooh.
Dark Hierophant has been here for 15 months. Thank you for that. Klekioki says the movie looks so muted as well. No one mentions this with all of the Marvel. All of their costumes look shit. There's no color and the clothes look baggy. Well, that's because they did this tactical thing and they've stuck with that kind of thing. Clearly, Kevin Feige likes that look.
Well, there's another thing as well. I mean, Marvel has been really female-centric as of late, and it's very, very important not to invite the male gaze. What I'm saying?
That too.
So it needs to be really tactical, all covering, a little bit saggy, because anything else is inviting the male gaze. That's bad. Very, very bad and problematic. You can't do that. Everyone needs to be covered up. So, yeah.
It's also the color palette of Saving Private Ryan. I mean, everything's just so flat and muddy.
Well, and that's partially just because it's all shot on digital now.
It's also color profiles. You can get in there.
Too,
well, it's also supposed to be dark, gritty, where the anti-heroes, etc., and so forth.
But I mean, I had this problem with Spider-Man No Way Home, where the movie shouldn't be so dingy looking. It just looks that bad because it's shot on digital cameras, where Spider-Man's costume is like a muted red.
But Guardians of the Galaxy was shot on digital as well, and I believe so was Thor Ragnarok, and still they look fantastic because there was an intention that they would look fantastic and a little bit more colorful, and that really is what they should be doing. But in the case of this particular movie, I was tactical, gray, and muted.
Until you get to the center.
But it was a movie about depression, so it kind of like fit thematically, so I'm not going to hold that against them, because it was part of the larger theme of it. Now, for some other things, there's no excuse. But,
Yeah, well, that's when the Sentry shows up in all of his golden god territory in contrast to everybody else. Then he's the real superhero, where they're just a bunch of sad sack.
But he makes up for it by becoming the Void, so, yeah.
Yes, there's that too.
Which is a problem, because now we're going to be dealing with mental health in every one of these movies going forward.
Well, you know what? Considering all of the TikTok videos and everything that has been driving people insane, especially the audience that Marvel has been making these movies for, the modern audience. If there's anyone that probably needs mental help, it's the modern audience. So, let them know it's okay to talk, and find a therapist. Maybe you actually do need it, and find someone to give you a hug better than raging on TikTok.
Yeah, Captain America had a support group in Endgame or something, didn't he? I mean, wasn't he seeing a therapist at some point?
Yeah, but it was like one scene.
Okay,
and that was justified by like half the world disappeared, so you could kind of extend that one a little bit.
Well, the same thing. 7 years. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons that Cap could have seen a therapist, right?
And you have the same thing in the Punch and stuff like that. I mean, there's legit reasons for going to therapy and stuff like that. For some things, there are legit reasons. Now, in this particular case, just looking at TikTok and just the news and everything, the madness that has been promoted in the last 4.5 years in particular. I mean, it's going to drive anyone insane, which is why I'm willing to look a little bit through the fingers there.
On the look and feel, this is pretty much on the nose. Horseradish Power says Thunderbolts is the great Snyderverse film.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's dark and sad and, makes you feel not a lot of joy when you leave.
Sorry, Andre, finish your point there. I'm sorry.
No, I was finished.
And I agree with Andre, by the way, because I did feel like I was watching a bunch of women whine in TikTok.
But you have to have to run on this culture, unfortunately. I was hoping you could stick around long enough.
Me
for
too.
the other
Me
talk,
too.
but don't plug your business.
Yeah, my business is, I guess, noir at this point, dark and sad. But look, I have a channel on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, Minds, and Getter. I also have a wonderful X account that you should follow because I've been a little spicy on there lately. Lots of fun stuff. I even dove into the ocular hypertelorism. Fascination that Hollywood has right now with casting. That got some love. So do check that out and just say thanks. I always enjoy doing Box Office Mondays with you guys. So hopefully I'll see you soon. And go check out Paulie, Latino Slant. He's a good guy. I'll see you later.
Hi, Culture.
Take care. And then we've got Jason Webster, who says, very happy Uprising won 3 honors at the 61st Boksong Arts Awards. Legend Park Chan-wook, Decision to Leave, won Best Screenplay for Uprising. There you go. Grand Admiral Adam has been a member for 28 months. He says, this Thunderbolts team is more like Secret Avengers, not Thunderbolts or New Avengers. Oh, God. This New Avengers thing is really confusing me. Yeah. And I agree that this was part of the plan for a while. And I think they think they're clever. And because now they're saying that this is the new official title of the movie is.
Right. Yeah, they just put out a new poster. They're changing all the.
Yeah, see this thing here. Which is why it has the asterisk thing to it.
I'm wondering how many people are going to be fooled into thinking this is a completely different movie and then go see it a second time.
Good one.
None.
New marketing trick.
None. But I do think that, it was supposed to be this big marketing trick. I think they were going to think that this movie was much bigger than it was. And then it was supposed to be this big, huge reveal that they were the new Avengers. Because remember, we've been promised a new Avengers movie for how many years now? It's like, since basically the end of Endgame.
Well, we should actually, when it was the Kang Dynasty, it should have opened already. It was supposed to kick off summer season this year.
So now they can say, "Hey, let's go see the new Avengers movie."
I had a feeling that was going to end up.
Oh, haha.
Yeah. See, and I don't think it's going to work out the way they wanted it.
No, it's
clever girl. Yeah.
Next weekend, let's go see the new Avengers movie. Oh yeah, there's a new Avengers movie. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. No, thank you. Yep. And then we got Kalikioki again sending in 5. It says, White Widow's costume is white and form-fitting. The film looks nothing like the comics. Not a big fan of the new Superman suit, but at least it's recognizable. Yeah, you're not wrong. Thunderstorm sends in $9.99. Says, how's that DEI woke stuff working out? Did that modern audience show up yet? No, not really.
I didn't. I heard this wasn't woke. I haven't really heard any claims of this being a woke movie.
It isn't.
Okay.
No, I mean, aside from sort of like the group hug resolution, aside that's relatively minor.
Entourage had group hugs, right? I mean, I never accused Entourage of being woke.
Exactly. I mean, there were dudes that group hug. So I would not put that into the woke category.
That's progress. So.
No, but this this is more like the DEI.
Maybe it's the girl boss aspect that he was referring to. I don't know.
But even that, I mean, there's no more girl boss here than Black Widow always was, if we are completely honest. Yeah, of course, you kind of have to buy into that here you have someone who's even shorter than Scarlett Johansson, who is able to take on very helpful stuntmen. But if you can kind of like just buy into that and accept that, then there's no wokeness here.
There was a little bit in that one of those early scenes of between Ghost and Yelena versus Walker of a little bit of mansplaining type resistance kind of stuff, but I think that might be the closest.
Pushback in the chats. We're getting like, what about all the woman-splaining?
Well,
and
yeah.
Mickey says this is one of the wokest movies ever. You guys are hacks. And
Yeah.
kill us.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Paulie, what wokeness did you see in it?
Yeah, man.
What did we miss?
Well, I haven't seen it. I'm just going by what people have told me who have seen it, that it's not particularly woke.
Well, I think that if you see much wokeness here, then I think maybe you may have gotten a little bit hypersensitive, which I do not blame anyone for. But I think if you were to take that exact standard and you were to go back in time, you'd find the same level of wokeness way back in Iron Man 2.
Yeah, right. Well, Tootsie was woke. I mean, from what I understand, so.
Yeah.
Well, we're woke hacks. Yeah.
Yay.
We're wide awake. We're not woke. That's all.
No, we're woke hacks. Hey, they paid us
I'm
money.
not awake at all, so I don't know what y'all are
No,
talking
you're
about.
never awake.
Well, that's
I'm
on
never
brand,
awake.
so it's okay.
Jason Webster sends in 5 Australian and says, Jean Duyen, I'm sure I screwed that up.
That's pretty
Kill
good.
Boksoon won Best Actress, film 5th career win. Wow. At the 61st Boksung Award Arts Awards for her performance in the action film Revolver. It's a good Beatles album too. High Dragon Star sends in 5 and says, what are the chances that theaters will renegotiate contracts with studios, especially since theaters are running out of money?
There's nothing else to put in there. I mean,
I was gonna say they kind of had to renegotiate after COVID. I'm not so sure that there's going to be much more they can work out other than longer windows for movies. That's the one thing I think they can really try to push for. But
what they can do is elevate and keep spotlighting new distribution hubs, studio companies like Angel Studios. They can welcome them to the table, HI, because those big ass corporate contracts, those are always going to be there. There might be slight changes here and there, but at least those theater chains and can open up their doors, because there's plenty of screens, and bring in new people like Angel Studios, and there's other ones as well.
that's one thing they could do. They have been opening, like, you can do private screenings now. They're opening the door. They're opening the door to more indie film fare, like that's not rated, and other things like that used to be an issue. Terrifier's a great example of that. So there's ways. The theaters have always found ways to make money. I think right now the studios are the ones that should be the most worried, and we're gonna get into that in just a few moments here. Dark King says, on this Cinco de Mayo, let us pay tribute to the Mexican twins who became heroes as firefighters, Jose and Jose B. Paulie.
Yeah. Jose and
Jose.
Get it?
Jose. Yes. Little dad joke there.
Again, that just hashtag Gringo de Mayo.
Gringo de Mayo. Jason Webster says 61st Boksung Arts Awards TV, When Life Gives You Tangerines. 4 honors. I'm really gonna screw this up. Zhang Young, The Star Is Born, 2 of them, and then Doubt got 2, and Lovely Runner got 2. So there you go. That's the television side of things. Thank you for that, Jason. Toga Free is in the house and sends in $4.99. Says Snyder wishes he made a movie as coherent as Thunderbolts. Oh,
yeah, that's true.
Hi-oh.
That's very true. There wasn't enough slow motion grain. Living Large today says this what I probably would have paid for a Thunderbolts ticket. Would rather give the money here than a
forget
movie that
2-on-1,
isn't worth
it's
my
gonna be
time.
death.
Here at Midnight's Edge, your time is
Let's
respected.
see how
Well,
far
we're
go
glad, and
back.
thank you for that, Jesus. One of our big supporters on the channel here, and we appreciate that.
All the cool kids are doing it.
That's right. High Dragon Star sends in 5 and says Thunderbolts is Avengers, Great Lakes Avengers. Look them up, the campy, comedic, and pretty bad Avengers group. Yeah, there's a lot of people that have brought this up, High Dragon Star. They're like, why didn't they just make this a Great Lakes Avengers film?
An actual comedy, that would have been great. Then you could just introduce everybody as just like goofy superheroes. That sounds more like a Disney Plus
You
series.
could have leaned more into the Guardians of the Galaxy stuff too. There.
Yes, much more easily. Much more easily.
Guardians of the Galaxy was kind of a comedy, and the first Ant-Man with Michael Pena and Paul Rudd, that was hilarious.
Yes.
I wish I could see the original script treatment, though, that what's his name had done for it before he got booted off the project.
And then Chaos Sonic 1 says the real new Avengers had Spider-Man, Wolverine, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, and Carol when she was a good character. See, I actually would have watched this even with Brie, to be honest with you. This sounds like a hit movie right here. And you have all these people cast already.
Yep.
Especially considering you just had a big hit with Hugh Jackman returning as Wolverine again. Pilgrim Media says, hacky sack, hack that sack. Pilgrim Media then says, you guys watching the Illuminati Met Gala? No, I'm not. What is the... Is he talking about just the Met Gala in general?
He refers to the Met Gala in general. But when you look at the
That's what I figured.
costumes and the guests and stuff like that,
Like the
I'm not going to
red
get the
carpet
channel
ceremony.
down, but I see where he's coming from, and that's where people dress all like.
The girls on Toxic Femme usually cover the Met Gala stuff.
Yeah.
Or at least the goofier of the outfits.
Yeah, those are the worst ones.
Yeah. But with that, let's get into the big news of the day, and that is the talk of the town. Hollywood is in panic, and of course they're saying, see, we told you Trump was going to ruin us and ruin the world. So the movie industry is shocked and confused after Trump says he'll put 100% tariffs on films produced outside the U.S. This is nuts. All right, so now there's been a couple updates to this story. I am just fresh to this, so somebody's going to have to get me up to speed on this, just like some people in the audience. So who do I hand this to? Andre, are you up to speed on this?
I've been traveling all day, so I think that we handle this thing to Scribe. You have no excuse. You're up to this. What's going on?
Okay,
We had
so
script here earlier. Unfortunately, he had to leave.
yeah, so Trump put a thing out on Truth Social the other last night saying that he wanted to put 100% tariffs on movies that were not produced in the United States to try to encourage more, movie making in the United States. However, outside of that effective declaration, there was no clarification exactly what qualifies as a production made outside the United States, because again, as I said before, the super chats, it's like, well, if I film the entire thing in Utah, but then I farm out my effects to a house in the UK, does that qualify as a outside of the United States production? So many moving parts of movies these days is not all done in the United States, even if it is a production company that's headquartered within. So there's so much ambiguity to this.
I have another example there. Let's say that you have a movie that is mostly filmed in the U.S., but then you have a couple of scenes that require exotic locations. Say, for instance, that you are filming Dune, and there's literally no dunes which are majestic enough in the continental United States that you can get away with them. Or say that you're filming Superman and you need the Fortress of Solitude, and again, even Alaska in winter doesn't quite cover it, or you need an alien landscape, and there's nothing quite like Alaska, like Greenland or Iceland in the United States. So you need one of these scenes filmed outside of the U.S.
We're going to buy one of them anyway.
15% outside. Yeah, of course, we buy Greenland, so that will
Yay.
take care of that. But,
Sorry,
but Iceland may be a bigger challenge.
Yeah, I know. No, yeah, that's a good question, and that's the bigger question, I guess, is how is this going to work?
Yeah, well, the stocks dropped on a whole bunch of production companies just overnight, apparently as a result of this, because all of a sudden you have Netflix and Paramount and all these other companies, and Disney as well. They all dropped a couple of points.
Especially Disney, because they film like all of their Star Wars out.
I was just going to say, all of the three companies you just mentioned, I was just going to say, of the three companies you just mentioned, they're the ones who film the most shit outside the U.S., and that's how Netflix circumvented all the COVID shit years ago, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's the problem is that Trump has made this declaration in a very ambiguous way, and nobody's quite sure how it's supposed to work or what the conditions would be on it or how you would qualify or disqualify yourself. So it's all very up in the air. But of course, when you do something like that, you make uncertainty, and that's why the stock market has reacted this way. It's like all of a sudden, all these movies in production or things where they now going to be or things planned to be in production in the near future, are they suddenly now at risk of having their costs jump through the roof?
I mean, without knowing exactly how it works, I'm imagining it's going to be like most productions are now. Like, okay, to qualify for a lot of these, like say Canada, and Paul, you could probably jump in here and help me with this. To do a production in Canada, if through a U.S. studio, you're required to hire X amount of crew and cast that are Canadian to qualify for said tax break, right? So I'm assuming it's something that will go the other way around. So X amount of your production and all that kind of stuff has to be in the U.S. You could probably get away with doing maybe 20% outside the U.S. and not get bombarded with the same kind of 100% tax or whatever. But I don't know if Paul has anything to add to that from the other perspective of that.
I'm pretty sure it's going to be percentage based, just like you said, and they'll use Hollywood accounting to try to get it as best they can. But you know, a movie like Mission Impossible, what are they going to shoot everything in Georgia now? The thing I'm most worried about is, doesn't Trump know that the people in Hollywood are really going to not like him after this? I mean, he's really risking his reputation.
Ah, man, gosh, they'll hate him.
Well, the bigger question
here is,
all
the people that already hated him?
You mean all the people that have secretly, have gone to him and
MAGA,
said,
the MAGA contingency in Hollywood. Oh, man.
No, not the MAGA contingency.
Let Andre finish his point here, because then we have another guest joining us. Actually,
sorry. I was about to say, I would think that Stallone and Voight and Gibson would be able to set Trump straight on some of this.
This is
appointed them ambassadors, didn't he? I mean, you think that
this was Voight's idea
on this?
No,
Yeah, this was their idea.
This was Voight's idea, Andre. The rumor is that John Voight is the one who pushed this in the first place and convinced Trump to go this way.
No,
Well,
you guys.
And movies like Working Man, I'm sure that was shot in America.
What do you got to say, Paulie?
No, man, Mike's here. I'm good. I'm good.
No, what are you going to say? You were going to say something.
I'm good. Mike's here.
All right, Mike's here.
I want to know. I'm not going to say anything until I know what Paulie had to say.
Oof.
Happy Gringo de Mayo.
The scientists.
Happy Cinco de Mayo. It's a little early for us to be drinking, but Mexican Iron can make. If someone wants to send a smoking hot chick to my room, I can start early.
Hell yeah.
I do want to report to the fans. I was supposed to be in a 2-day audit here in Houston, all day Monday, all day Tuesday, and half a day Wednesday, and the agent already released me.
Yeah, he told me he was going to be locked up. I tried getting him yesterday.
Anyway, Paulie, what were you going to say about all this?
Yeah, no, this is what I was gonna say is the wokest of woke, people that you can imagine have been going in secret to Trump to save this industry. That's all I was gonna say. That's not a rumor. It's not. That has happened. That has happened. And this is not an overnight thing. This is not like, oh my God, he did what? The reality is that this has been a runaway industry for decades now. It is absolutely ridiculous. It's been ridiculous. It's already a tough industry to even etch out a living. So I fully applaud this, and I think this is fantastic. This has to kick the asses of these state governors to get tax incentives, but also to just create a federal tax incentive for productions. Let's get this going, man. We need to make movies here in America. That's how it used to be for so long.
Yeah.
That's for so long.
So you think this encourages domestic production and counters sort of foreign incentives that everybody?
Well, I think it's going to have to.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it for a minute. One of the reasons Stallone left California, he's one of the people that left California. I'm sure he would love to go back.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, is Hollywood used to be the hub, and that's why all these movie stars live there. And Paulie's right. I've heard, of actors complaining, is like, why the fuck do I live in Hollywood when I work 90% of the year outside of the U.S. or outside of my home state or way away from my home?
In Canada, right.
In Canada.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And you're right, because 90% of the TV shows now are made in Canada.
Yep.
Fucking most productions are made elsewhere. You've got but there are places in the U.S. that are trying to build studios, trying to get production back into the U.S., and I think that's a good thing. And I agree with you. You got to get incentives in here. Trump needs to get out there and say, yes, not only are you going to get X amount if you shoot in the U.S., you're going to get double that if you shoot in Hollywood, right? Or California or whatever.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that'd be huge, because Hollywood, from what I understand, has lost a ton of work to Vancouver.
Well, and it's all because of the taxing, right? Because, and I'm sure Paulie can back me up on this, because that's part of the problem. The beauty of California is that you have almost every single atmosphere you can think of within 10, 15, 20 mile radius drive, right? Like, that's why they used to make movies out there all the time, because you could have a desert, and then 20 minutes you could drive, you could have a forest, and then 20 minutes down the road you could drive and you could have a big old clean lake and all this other, and it was always, the weather was decent. You didn't have to worry about all the bullshit all the time you have to deal with in the mountains or anywhere else where you're filming and shooting stuff, where you constantly have to worry about weather conditions and all this other bullshit. None of that is an issue in California. But what became a problem was the taxes. But go ahead, sorry, Paulie.
No, even if you look at just our United States, we got every terrain there is. I just sent you guys some info in the private chat just on dunes. Look at all those films that have been filmed outside of Yuma, Arizona.
Well, on that note, there's very few movies where there's an actual real good excuse that they went outside the U.S. just for specifically the look of the place. Like, the good example I can think of is Lord of the Rings, right? Why did you have to shoot New Zealand? Because that's one of the only places in the world that still looks like old England does, that isn't built, that doesn't have power lines, that doesn't have all, like, that made sense, right? That's why you can do that once in a while, but not everything has to be that way. Go ahead. Sorry, Paul, you had more.
No. So I definitely, this is a problem, and it's not, and it affects every single person in the industry, in front of, behind the camera, high and low, blah, blah, blah. But that being said, there is some details like, well, what do you mean? Like, how does this going to work practically? If a U.S. production is filming like Doomsday, Avengers, and in England, and is it a UK production because it has a UK production office set up, Mikey? So for the taxes, so technically it's not a U.S. production. They're gonna have to clarify a lot of that stuff.
Well, not just that, you're running the risk of a tariff war. So I mean, are we gonna start getting tariff for our stuff overseas? They're already the industry's already reliant on global.
Well, we already have situations where, like in China, there's only so many movies
allowed.
Yeah,
but I would argue that unlike consumer goods, a tariff war about entertainment is largely irrelevant. I mean, seriously, are we gonna is there a battle internationally, Chris, going over like Indian movies? I don't think so.
No, but I think it's kind of risky, since the film or the movie cinemas tickets consumers, it's already low. I mean, it's down what, 40% from, or maybe 30% from the pre-COVID days. I don't know if this is going to.
I think we need to take a macro look at this thing, because there's a lot of productions, a lot of movies that are delivered in theaters as well as on streaming services that are filmed overseas for tax benefits. I'm going to go back to what Paulie said. I've heard for a long time that not only conservatives in Hollywood wanted something to happen like this, but a lot of the hypocritical Democrats in Hollywood wanted this too. I've heard that for years, that they wanted something like this too. And only recently have you heard some of the people that, whether they're Democrats or Republicans in Hollywood, speak up. There was a recent interview that you had with Ben Affleck. You all saw that. I think you talked about it on Midnight's Edge or Midnight's Edge After Dark, one of the shows.
I think Matt Damon, I think is what you're
Okay,
referring
yeah, sorry, Matt Damon. No, Ben Affleck also talked about it as well.
Okay.
They both did.
Okay.
You know, and so the point of it is that it goes back to what the reason Hollywood was such a great place way back when was that New York did cost a lot, and people came out to the Wild West to film a lot of this stuff. The Wild West Ground Zero was Hollywood. Now you know, Atlanta and Canada were the first two places, regional centers, to take money away from Hollywood. Then that expanded to England, and now everybody has incentives to do stuff outside of California. Where the costs are literally 10 to 20 times the cost of anything, because it's basic. So I think something dramatic like this is needed. I applaud it. I think it's fantastic. I don't even give a shit that my Disney stock goes down or that other studio stock goes down, because it's not about what the investors want. It's what the line people need that are what are called below the line people. I mean, how many people that make up the most of the economic force in Hollywood are the set builders, the actors that work on a daily basis, people like Polly's girlfriend, not these high-level falutin, you know, Class A stars.
They
that
pay
are
the most
Marvel
taxes
movies.
too, right?
Yeah, I mean, these people.
Oh my God!
Is that W-2 employees that get paid through the unions pay a frackload of taxes?
Right,
So,
and a lot of the big stars, they don't even live in California anymore. They moved out.
absolutely not. And
No,
so
they don't
something
live there.
like this is needed for the production staff, the writers, the graphics people, the editors, all of the people to otherwise this industry is dead. And for whatever reason, we can do stuff overseas all day and night. But I saw someone make a comment in chat, which is that the more that we produce stuff for an international, global, and I'm going to say it, leftist, ridiculous agenda, then the further away we get from the classic moral lessons that Hollywood used to give us about individualism, rugged Americanism, and the ideals that the entire planet used to aspire to be like here, that were promoted by the American film industry, which more recently have gone to the wayside as woke infestation has taken over the hive mind of all these leftist liberal dipshits. So I applaud this. I think this is great. I hope the stocks continue to tank, and I hope that Canada loses a ton of money, and I hope that New Zealand does, Australia, and especially the United Kingdom.
This is just another example of certain sectors in the American market where there's such good capitalists that they need protection because of their own incompetence and self-inflicted inability to compete. This is 100%. This is not Chinese cheap labor over American labor. This is 100% abdication of their own businesses.
That's right.
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
That is a brilliant way of putting it, Channel, because essentially what's happened is that the creative integrity and brilliance that was seeded in the Western world, in the U.S. and Canada, has now been cheapened and sold to various places on the planet, all for what? Tax credits. And what's the net result of the product that we've got? The net results are that Hollywood actors and Hollywood industry people are out of work and suffering. And number two, the quality of what we see on our TV screens or in our movie theaters sucks.
So let's give you an example of that, right, guys?
That's not due to offshoring, though.
Let's give you an example of that, guys, in the chat, right? What does that mean? What they'll do is they'll take a production that was here, and they'll go and film it out of the country. And you have to, to get your tax breaks, you have to do so many local hires on every level.
That's what I was talking about before. Yeah,
I know you were, but I'm going to add to this. Is that what Hollywood will do, though, is that they'll actually go through the audition process, production process, and see who they can get here, then go and lowball over there in fucking Canada. And yeah, I said it, over there in fucking Canada. Don't give a shit. And then they'll find lower asses to do those jobs, and then they'll leave those people who had thought they had gotten the job out in the wind. They're screwed. American jobs.
It doesn't help.
It's happening. It's been happening, and it happens every day.
It doesn't help the governor of California put some edict together that required studios to get tax credits in California to follow a hard DEI regime. This is all self-inflicted.
Yeah, this puts pressure on Gavin Newsom, I think, in a big way.
Well, that's another part of the conversation, right? Because here's the thing: it's Hollywood's done this before, and it's like they didn't learn their lesson. Do you guys remember 20 years ago when they started filming everything in Australia? They started moving everything to Australia, and then this basically happened. All the unions and all the people started griping, so then they moved everything back here. But then this is when like all the other production companies started opening in Georgia and all these other places these facilities did. But yeah, no,
you know what?
Chato's on
right. Listen, Chato's on point, man, because I'm running through our experiences with casting, with productions that will go and do the casting or do some of the hiring practices here. Then we'll go to Louisiana. Then we'll go to Atlanta.
Right.
Then we'll go to New Mexico. It used to be New Mexico, Texas. And you're absolutely right, Chato. In other states have better tax incentives. That's other states.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a horror film last night, and half of it was filmed. More than half of the film was filmed in Colombia. I think set in New York City.
This is what I was getting at. Is like that when they've done it before, they brought it back, but then instead of coming back to Hollywood, is when they started coming to Georgia and Arizona and all these other states instead of coming back to Hollywood.
I mean,
right?
Sound of Freedom was what, Fox Columbia?
Yeah, well, and this is nothing new. They used to shoot a lot of cheap movies back in Romania back in the day, and
yeah, it's not
all these
nothing new, but we have to compete. We have to compete, and we have to, just like we would. Because I think the DEI stuff was like the last of the shit. Because this has been going on for a while.
Well, that's what's preventing people now from coming into Hollywood. That's what I think you guys are saying more so, at least my interpretation. Because like, here's the freaking thing. This is why Trump is retaliating, because Newsom's like, oh yeah, you can get these tax breaks as long as you adhere to these DEI incentive programs kind of thing, right? But at that point, then people are like, well, fuck that, I'll just go shoot somewhere else, right?
What I meant was like the last 10 years now have been the active DEI, which has been the death of all.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Right, a lot of what we're seeing and hearing, absolutely. But this has been going on for decades and decades, but yeah.
And it was started with the 1980s writers' strike.
The 88 strike?
Yeah, the 80s writers' strike. That's really when this thing kicked into gear, because Hollywood would never do a A-lister project outside of the United States or Los Angeles unless it was on location.
Yeah, you're right. The only big movies that used to shoot like that were like more independent features, like the George Lucas features. He'd always go over to the UK, right? But like, you're not wrong. Like, it is more of a last 20, 30 years thing. And like I said, I kind of remember it started when they started doing all these productions in Sydney and all these other places in Australia. And it's like, and it was just over the tax incentives. That's it.
Yeah, the only thing they had to remember when they were doing The Matrix is to flip the film over, so the cars were driving on the right side of the road.
He's not
speaking
wrong.
On the right and the wrong side.
Well, the Matrix movies built Australia a big freeway thing, didn't they, basically?
Yeah, and
I don't know that they got to keep that.
Again,
I think they did.
Once again, the only thing that I object to this of mini tariffs that Trump has been thinking of is that this is 100% self-inflicted. That Toronto has been building Pinewood-sized studios.
Yeah.
Well then.
So I mean, it's more than just. I mean, right now, what are we? 65 cents on the dollar. I mean, that's another incentive to do your productions here. But you know, Georgia and all these different places have been.